Hello, so wonderful to see you again. It's Judy from Coffee, Cookies, and Books, and what we're going to do today is talk about everything that I read in the month of November. I have 14 books to review with you this month, so I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet as much as possible. Plus, we do have some things that we have to go over right at the very beginning. So, first and foremost, let's just talk about my stats for the month. I had an incredible reading month. Absolutely fantastic. Did not DNF anything, and I did not have anything under 3 stars. So I had a very good reading month. I read in total 14 books for 4,791 pages in total. My average reading per day is about 160 pages. And I had 5 5-stars. Was no lie. 5 5-stars. So when I say I had a good reading month, I had a really good reading month. I had 6 4-stars. And then I had 3 3-stars. So you can see the majority of my books were 4 and 5 stars. It just, yeah, wonderful. So my average rating ended up being 4.14, which makes me very, very, very happy. Then we have to talk about my challenges. Okay, so the 2 buzzword challenges, and I will put one up on each side for you to see. I still have one that needs to be completed, which is the buzzword reading challenge, and the December book is Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, so that is going to get read in December. But the November one, which was the Ballad of Never After, that has been read, and that's going to be reviewed today. Then the other one I had was for the buzzword cover challenge, and in the buzzword cover challenge, November and December, I both put on November's. So we have The Witch's Guide to Defensive Baking, read that. I'm going to review that. And Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver, I read that, and we're going to review it. So I really only have one book left, and I will have completed both buzzword challenges. Then the next one that I had was the 25 in 25 Bingo Challenge, which was created by Bree from Four Paws in a Book. Buzzword Challenge were created by Kayla from Books and Lala. And in the Bingo Challenge, the only opening that I have left was for a seasonal book, and one of my Christmas books is going to go on there. So I thought it would be appropriate to just kind of show you that, and we're going to end that off at the end of December, and we're going to end it with a bang, I'm sure, because I've got a lot of great Christmas books in my December TBR, and the link to my December TBR is down below. So you can take a look at that if you want to go back and watch that one. Okay, and then I think the only other one that I had was my 25 must-reads for 2025, and the last book that had to be read is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That is on my December, is absolutely going to get read. I'm reading all 5 of the Hunger Games books. So the first 3 I'm rereading, and the last 2 are new for me. So I'm going through all 5, and I know they'll get done. They're actually pretty quick reads. I'm filming this on December 1st, and I am almost through the first book. I think I have 100 pages left, and the first book is done already. So I kind of got a little ahead on that one, which is great. So that's it for all my challenges. That is it for my stats. I have some fun things planned with what I'm going to do with the results from these challenges. We're going to go over those kind of end of December, beginning of January. I've got a few videos on what happened in 2025 and how it all sort of played out. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to go through them all at the end. Okay, so that is it for stats and everything like that. So let's get on. We're just going to right now talk about, and let me close this so I don't have this in my face. So what we're going to talk about is the books that I didn't read and a couple of special ones. So the first two that I'm going to talk about were rereads, and that was We Used to Live Here and This Book Will Bury Me. So I was doing sort of deep dives on these and decided to discontinue the deep dives. I finished rereading this, which is going to be interesting. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And I finished rereading to halfway and decided to not complete the reread on this one. And that is because this one initially I gave it 2 stars. It just killed me reading through it. It was so slow. It was so I just did not enjoy how the story progressed. The main character I found an incredibly depressing character. Now, I didn't particularly dislike Ashley Winstead's writing, and I do have 1 or 2 more of her backlist books, which I will try because they sound good and interesting. I actually think that if it hadn't been for the main character of this book, what saved it and actually gave it 2 stars was kind of like the last 100 pages of the book, which I enjoyed. Okay. And I actually kind of like the very beginning of it, but it's a fairly lengthy book. So out of the whole book, I might have enjoyed 150 to 200 pages. So it stays at 2 stars. That one. This one is a whole different story altogether. So I reread this one and absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. It went from 2 stars to 5 stars. I am not kidding you. And I think it's because after I read it, I was lost in a lot of places. I found it really difficult to kind of follow the ideas behind what he was trying to build in here. And this is Marcus Kliewer is the author. And then when I watched a few videos from some of the YouTubers that I really like, and they did long, lengthy videos on it, and I was like, I got to go back and read this again. Because I clearly missed a lot of the triggering points as you go through. And now I have a clear understanding. I understood what the map at the beginning of the book represents. I understood what the Morse code represents. I understood what the documentation that falls in between each, or well, almost between every chapter. Not every chapter, pretty close. And some of it, I was like, I didn't understand any of that, why that was even in there outside of a couple of them. Then I really got it. And when I say I really got it, I really got it. And loved the reread of the book. Okay, so I have pre-ordered The Caretaker, which is his next book, which I think has a similar feel, if not in the same world. I'm not 100% sure. I don't even want to know, if I'm being honest with you. But if it has I know what to look for. So I think I'm going to enjoy that one much more first time around. But if not, I'll read it again because I picked up so much after reading it. Yeah, just 5 star, from 2 stars to 5 stars. Because there was nothing I didn't like in the book. I hated the ending, and I didn't the second time around. So I kind of got the ending much more. So that's that. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is just 2 books that I did not read. So these are 2 books that were selected in my TBR for November in my game. And it's the only 2 books that I did not get to. So what that means is these 2 books, the cards are going to go back in my selection group for my Yahtzee games going forward. So the first one is American Demon by Daniel shower. This is about a instance of something that happens. It is kind of historical. Talks about it's 1934, and it has to do with the victims that are in Cleveland. So it's about a serial killer. Okay, and I do want to read it. I just didn't get to it. I just didn't get to it. And I think it's written with a lot of historical, biographical type stuff in it. So I do want to read that one. Hopefully it'll come up again. I'll get to read it. The other one I didn't get to read was Crave by Tracy Wolff. Just didn't get to it. Wanted to read it, and this one was fairly long. I think it's like 550 to 600 pages, and I read so many of the other ones that it was great. And then when I got to the end, I knew there was no way I was going to be able to finish it, so that was how come I started the Hunger Games instead. And I didn't even finish that, and that's like almost, I think it's 370 pages. And I still have 100 pages left to read. So I never would have gotten through this one. It's unfortunate, but didn't get to read it. But it goes back in the pile because I didn't get to read it. That's how I do it, okay? All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually get on to the reviews of the books that I did read. All right, so I'm going to go in order that I actually read them because there's 14. And it just gets too complicated in my book because I have written notes for all of my books. So it's just easier for me to do it in the order that I read them in. And we're starting out strong. The first book that I read is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. And I gave this 5 stars. Now, the first book, I made a note because I put notes down here. So for Wild Love, I gave it 2.75 and I almost DNF'd it at 60%. So I did not love the first book. And I'm going to be honest with you that I have not loved a lot of Elsie Silver's books that I've tried, that it has been the first books in the series, and I didn't like them that much. But I did like West Belmont he's the brother of the main character from the first book. And I did like him, and I liked his kids. And I knew that this book was about West and Skylar, who is a pop star, singer. I don't know, is she country music? I don't know. It gives me kind of shades sort of Britney Spears because of the family drama that Skylar was going through. But anyways, that's part of the story. So they meet. It's the funniest thing because Skylar is driving to Rose Hill to meet with Ford about a contract, to do a contract together and do an album together because she hasn't been happy with any of the work that she's done previously. She hates the way she's manipulated by her family and her agent and everyone like that. So she wants to remove them from the equation and do this herself with Ford. Okay? So she's driving to Rose Hill. That's why she's driving there. And she stops the car and gets out to take a selfie with a grizzly bear. It's on the side of the road. Now, she doesn't realize it's a grizzly bear. She also doesn't realize that there are cubs with this grizzly bear. And let me tell you, that whole thing, so Wes is the one who drives up and tries to get her back in her car and everything like that. And the tension and what happens, they almost get eaten by a damn bear. Okay? And if it wasn't for him, yes, it was just crazy how it opened. But I loved how it opened. So that's how they met at the very beginning of the book. And then she ends up having to stay in the place where Grace had to live on her brother's property in the first book. So Skylar ends up living there, and it is on West's property. So Skylar meets his two kids. She really connects with Oliver, who's the boy, the oldest of the two. Super connects with him, and he is very sullen from what's happened with his parents and everything like that. The breakup there and that sort of thing. He's been sullen. So she has a very special relationship with them, and just how all the relationships built in the book, some of the parts of the book were funny, like you got more of Grace and her friends because they brought Skylar into their group, and you got Wes and Ford and the other guys, which are obviously the other books that are coming up, and just how the whole thing went together really worked for me in this book, which did not happen in the first book. Okay. And I don't know if it's because it's the continuing relationships, maybe, but I can honestly say that I thoroughly enjoyed how West and Skylar's relationship built. It was very slow building. It was not like insta-love or anything like that. Their attraction built slowly, and it was very believable in how it worked. And then, you bring into that she is a known factor in the world because she's a celebrity. So there's a lot of things that kind of rolled into that and how that happened. And her struggles with her self-worth because of what her family, her mom and her dad did to her, and her agent and the way they treated her. Yeah, loved it. 5 stars. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to try not to take as long with the next ones, but you never know. So this next one, I think, surprised me a lot, but then not really. And that is The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. So this is the second book in the Once Upon a Time series. I read the first book, and I gave the first book 2 stars. Yeah, 2 stars. Now, I had the whole set, and I seriously considered not continuing with the series. But I had several people tell me second book is better. You'll enjoy the second book. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll leave it until it comes up on my TBR. And it came up on my November TBR. And I gave this book 5 stars. This could have been a standalone for me, because nothing that happened in the first book, except for very, very minor details, because like Apollo's situation, everything, Evangeline and Jax, that's what this book was about. Really was about them. And I can't say too much because it is a continuation of the first book. Do you have to read the first book? I would say yes, just for the relationships on how things started with Evangeline right at the very beginning of the first book, the situation she got herself in with Jax, okay, who is the Prince of Hearts, and he is, he's supposed to be cold and all that sort of thing, but she made a deal with him, and that's how it all kind of transpired from the first book, and then to where it begins here, but I can't even say because that would be giving away the ending of the first book. So suffice to say that I really, really liked this one. I liked the elements of the characters that were in. I felt that the characters had a much deeper feeling to them than they did in the first book. In the first book, it felt like she glanced over a lot of them. And in this book, there were a lot more key characters that she went into in a deeper fashion. And that's what I enjoyed so much more in this book. So enough that I will continue on to the third one for sure. Even though it's like, even the ending, I was like, well, you know, it could have ended there. And I just really love this book, and I don't want to spoil it by reading the third book and not enjoying it. So that's kind of where, but I will read the third book now because there's only the 3. So I will read it, but I did really obviously, like this book. So much better than the first book. Yeah. So that's that one. Okay. So then the next one I read was actually an ebook. It was a novella called Fright Manifest by John Campbell. So it is technically a horror. And I gave me a copy and asked for my review on it. And I was more than happy to do that. And I actually really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. The reason I knocked it down is because I felt that there was some unbelievability to the premise of the story that I had a hard time kind of getting over, but that didn't take away from my enjoyment of what actually happened in the story. So what you have is you have an overnight flight from London, England to New York. And on this plane are 8 people plus your crew. I think there's two flight attendants and the 2 pilots. Okay, so technically that's at 12 people, but 8 passengers. And right at the very beginning, one of the passengers dies, and it is like horror in the skies. People are dying, and it's like almost a little bit of like the idea of that you're in a confined environment and something horrible is happening, and what can you do to stop it? So that's basically it. And then even the ending was shocking how it ended. Yeah, like it ended, and then it could have started. It's like it was going to start all over again, kind of idea. So I loved that. I actually thought it was pretty good. I mean, this is a self-published piece of work. The other reason I knocked it down is because it did have a few minor editing errors, but outside of that, it was really good. Okay. It was only 140 pages. So not long at all. And, you know, I would say solid 4 stars, because in 140 pages, he packed a lot into 140 pages, but it didn't feel chaotic. It didn't feel like a mess. You were also getting the timelines on what was happening on the ground. Okay, because this plane obviously took off, somebody died, and it had to turn around and come back. So what's happening on the ground? What are the people down there monitoring the plane? What are they doing? So you had snippets of that as you were going through it. I thought that was great. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. And if anybody wants a quick horror read, would totally recommend that one. Next book is Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. And this was a 4-star read for me. Very much enjoyed it. So what you have is you have these 4 women who are technically ready to retire from their jobs as assassins. Now, they worked for a particular organization, and they belonged to a project called Project Sphinx that was created solely because, like, it was back in the 40s or 50s, and it was because they needed a group of women who could do the jobs that the men couldn't do. So they admittedly needed women for certain things. And sometimes they worked together, sometimes they didn't work together, but they trained together. And that's kind of where their relationships kind of started. And so that's at the beginning of the book. And so what happens is they go on a cruise, and they quickly realize that they have become targets of their organization. So that's where the story kind of develops from there. And so you've got the four women, and there's Billy, Mary Alice, Helen, and Natalie. And then you actually have a couple of additional characters. You have Akiko, who is Mary Alice's spouse. So they're married. And then you have Minko, who is a young Ukrainian girl that Billy has kind of developed a relationship, taken her under her wing, basically saved her. So you have those two characters as well, which I thought they were fantastic. Just, yeah, like fantastic. I think there's even a cat, if I remember correctly. I think there's a cat. Yeah, because I don't want to say too much, but yes, there's a cat. But what you have is you have these four women trying to get out of dying. So they're using their wits and their skills against the organization they worked for. But you still have them admitting that they're where their age is taking them. Like they reflect on that. And oh my God, it was so good. I really, really, really liked it. I mean, the only reason I gave it 4 stars is because I felt some of it felt a little bit, it dragged in areas, and it felt a little repetitive at certain points. So that was why it was a 4-star, not a 5-star, but it was still a thoroughly enjoyable read. Like, honestly, if she wrote another book about these 4 characters, I would read it because I loved the 4 characters. Yeah, they were fantastic. The 4 women, oh my God, they were so good. Yeah. Crazy, right? Yes. Okay. So the next book is actually a second book in a series. First book was Convergence, and I gave that 2.5 stars. I read that in June. I thought it was okay. It is a sci-fi military romance, kind of suspense. Kind of rolls all of that in. And I did really like it. And it introduced the 2 main characters, which was Olivia Loxley and Commander Atarian. So that was from the first book. This book is Resilience, and it is a continuation story of those 2 characters. And they basically, in the first book, they come together as a couple. Okay? So they mate together. So now it's where they have to go back to Commander Atarian's homeworld to introduce Olivia to his parents and figure out how to, because Atarian is he's kind of undercover as a commander, which comes out like in the book. So he has a persona on his homeworld, and then he has his position as a commander of these military. They're like special forces, okay? And in the first story, the reason that he kidnaps Olivia in the first story is so that they can rescue these humans who have been taken by this one particular group for basically to become slaves, to be sold. They're going to be sold as slaves. So that's kind of where the whole story starts in the beginning. And so that bleeds into the second book. Second book, I gave 3 stars. So I did like it a little bit better. It was shorter. Okay. It was not a full, I think the first book was like 250 pages. This one was like only 140 pages. So this was more like a novella, but it moved faster. There were no slow parts. There were a lot of things that were thrown at you, and there were still some loose ends, I will say. I didn't feel that she tied it up as neatly as it should have been. And it was a little tiny bit disappointing at certain parts. But you have to read the first book in order to know what I'm talking about. And it had to do with a Olivia trying to find out certain things that had transpired, and she's kind of investigating her way through this to save their positions in what they're doing. Okay. Yeah. So anyways, I really did like that. Now, the next books in the series, because I think there's 6 books. Could be wrong. I think there's 6. The next books have darker themes in them, and they are centered on one couple per book. So not like this one, which was the first 2 books were a continuation. I mean, I do kind of want to read the next ones because I am interested in what happens in this world. And there is one particular character who I would like to read his story because he was important to the 2 of them in the first 2 books. So I would like to read his story. So yeah. So I do think I'm going to continue on with the series. I will put the next book in my Kindle Unlimited because these are available on Kindle Unlimited. So yeah, it's hard because, when you have these continuing series, it's hard to be able to say anything. You can't say too much. And that happens to be the case with this one. So it is what it is. Okay, so next book in the series is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. And I gave this 4 stars. Now, I'm going to say this is probably the book that I've enjoyed the most from T. Kingfisher. Even though I have enjoyed the Sworn Soldier series, but this I have not given that more than 3.5, 4 stars. But this I enjoyed more. It is a longer book, obviously. It's a full-size novel. I just loved the characters in here. So what you have is you have Mona. Mona's 14 years old, and she works at her aunt and uncle's bakery, and she basically bakes things. Now, she has magical powers, but the only thing that she's been able to do magically is she can make her gingerbread men do little dances and perform and that kind of thing. That has been the extent of her magic. And that is kind of how this world works. So there are people who have magic, and as magical people, they have certain things specifically that they can do. Some of them, it's stronger, and in her case, it's not very strong at all. The book opens with her coming at like 4 o'clock in the morning to work at the bakery, and she finds a dead girl inside the bakery. Okay? So obviously she's very upset. She calls her aunt and uncle. They call the guards and everything in, and she gets taken and accused that she's the one that killed this girl. I mean, she's 14 years old. It's clear she didn't do it, okay? But that's where sort of the whole idea that there's something going on in the background, because the queen dismisses it and says she didn't do anything, let her go, like, this is ridiculous. But this one guy, he's determined that she did this, but there's like a reason behind this whole thing. So I found that interesting. I found like that part of it good. But then what lost me a little bit was it became a much darker story kind of as you got into the middle, without giving too much away. And there was a lot of pressure placed on Mona, okay? And she's 14, and her young friend who was 10 years old. And I found that a little too much, okay? That was what marked it down to 4 stars for me. Then the lightheartedness, because you kind of, I felt halfway through, it kind of lost the lightheartedness a little, even though right from the beginning there's a dead body, but it still had a bit of a lighthearted feel, but it slowly got darker and darker and darker and darker. But I did enjoy it still. So clearly gave it 4 stars. And yeah, I just thought it was a really great book. And, it's a standalone. It came to a good ending. And like I said, best one I've read from T. Kingfisher so far. So really enjoyed that. Very, very much. Okay. Next one was Twisted Love by Anna Huang. Now, this is the first book in a series. I can't remember what series, the Twisted series. Okay. And it is Ava, who is a 22, and she's a photography student, and Alex, who is 26. And Alex is her brother's best friend. So that is where things kind of transpire. And her brother, Josh, gets a job. I think he's a doctor, so he takes like a Doctors with Borders kind of job. And he's leaving for a year. And he asks Alex to take care of Ava. That's kind of where the whole thing sort of transpires. What I liked about the book was there was a backstory that had to do with Ava and her father, and Ava's loss of her memories when she was younger, and that something tragic had happened to her. Okay, and also that Alex also had a tragic background as a young person, and he was seeking revenge. So there was a suspenseful part of the book, which I quite liked. But what I felt was that Alex at 26 and her at 22, they were too young. Like their ages did not fit, to me, the story that transpired, particularly Alex's side of the story. He felt like he was 30 in the book. So I felt it was a bit incongruous that way. Like it didn't work for me that way, but the story itself worked for me. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. So that's why I gave it 3 stars. Okay. It just I had a hard time getting over that hump with it, because I just kept thinking, she's 22 and he's 26. She's 22 and he's 26. Like, what the hell? I do have the rest of the series. I mean, I liked it enough that obviously I will continue on with the series. I think there's 4 books in the series, I think. Well, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's 4 books in the series. So I will continue on with it, but I think it could have been so much better if she had written her characters older. It would have been more believable for me. Yeah, so that's that one. So we're halfway through. Sorry. All right. So the next book is Iron Widow, which by Xiran Zhao, and I really enjoyed this book. Now, I gave it 5 stars, I think, in Goodreads, but technically it was like a 4.5 for me. What kind of knocked it down just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit was my difficulty with the Chinese names. Okay, because this has very much, it's a sci-fi fantasy world with a Chinese cultural background to it, but it is clearly feels futuristic and feudal at the same time. Okay, so she combines the two beautifully together. Loved the way that was combined. I loved the sci-fi elements. So what you have is you have this world where the people of this place, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, they live behind a wall, which seems like the Great Wall of China. Okay, So they live behind this wall, and beyond this wall, they are fighting these things that are attacking them on this world, trying to destroy them. And they have these fighting machines, okay? And in these machines, there is a pilot, and then there is a woman who feeds into the pilot her chi, okay, which is her life force, is how I kind of thought of it in my mind. And in a lot of cases, the pilot drains the female and they die. And this happens on a regular basis. The main character from this book, Zetian, her sister is one of these women, and her sister dies. She's never had any interest in being sold to this consortium, this military group, or anything in the past, but now she does. And she wants to take revenge. So the book is very revenge oriented, and everything that transpires in the book kind of centers around that, and not just her, but also includes other characters. But what happens in this book is pretty brutal, and I can say the author has no problem killing people off at all. It just is harsh and hard and incredible at the same time. Now, what I really loved, and it's right at the beginning of the book, is it literally shows you these fighting machines, okay, and their different powers, and they can power up to higher levels based on the pilot and chief. So based on these two people, that's where the power comes from, okay? And there are different levels of machines, and each machine, even at their top level, certain ones are more powerful than others. What she wrote is incredible. My opinion, I've already bought the second book, which is Heavenly Tyrant, and I cannot wait to read on, because the way this ended just leaves you thinking, what the hell's going to happen next? Okay. Now, I don't know if it's just a duology or if it's a trilogy or whatever. Like, it doesn't actually say. But yeah, this included the concept art. I loved the concept art of the machines. Just wow. But the other book, where is the other book? It's up here, and I can't wait to read the next book in the series. And for me, I'm not a big historical fiction person, but I love it like this, where it is tied into something else, like another story, or, like historical fiction, and it's a mystery, thriller, horror type thing. Like, I love it like that, but with the sci-fi fantasy element. This was so good. This reminded me a little bit of, is it Icebreaker? Which was another one, only it's in space. The other thing that I should mention is the people that are running these machines, they're young, okay? Like, she's 18 and her pilot she's with is 19. Like, these people are young. And the younger they are, the stronger their chi is, and they actually die young because these machines are killing them, essentially. I thought, oh, you're so crazy. Oh my God. So good, so good, so good. Oh, yeah. Very good. Okay, next one is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy. And this book actually surprised me a little bit. This is like, it has a mystery element to it, but it is contemporary fiction at the same time. And it has a bit of a dark side to it, okay? And almost a desperate suspense side to it. It has all of that rolled into one story. And there are elements of it that are very sad. And then there are elements of it that bring you great joy. I gave it 4 stars. And the reason that I gave it 4 stars was that there were some elements of it that I thought were a bit dragged out and a little bit almost unbelievable, kind of, you know, little bit. It was a bit of a stretch in some cases, but how the story starts is there's this man and his 3 kids. They're young teenagers, are living on this rock land that is being used to create seed banks, okay? And they know that they've lived there quite a long time. Now, I can't remember exactly how long again, but they've been there a long time. He's been there with his kids a long time. He moved there when his wife died and moved with the kids there. Moved there with the kids after his wife died. So, because he was finding it very hard to manage without her. His wife died in the birth, I think, of his youngest one. So there's him and his oldest son, his daughter, and then the youngest one. Now, he might not be a teenager yet, but he's close. He's like 12-ish, I think, 10, 12. So they've been on this island for a long time, and they've been working with the researchers, and he has worked with them to help maintain the seed bank, which is kept in this underground cavern area. But the island is sinking, and they have to get off the island. So that's kind of the whole story. Their story. And then what happens is the daughter is down on the shore and a woman washes up on the shore. They don't know where she came from. They don't know what's going on with her. I mean, she's very severely injured, and they don't have any backup support anymore on the island because everybody's left and they're waiting. They've got 6 weeks or 8 weeks to wait for them to come back to get them. And in the meantime, Dominic has to prepare the seed banks to be transported, and everything's being taken off the island. And they have to leave. Okay? So it's kind of that story and how they're trying to deal with that. And then this woman washes up. And then there's her story mixed in with theirs. And her story mixes in with theirs. Okay? Now, I can't tell you too much about what transpires between them all. Suffice to say that she develops a relationship with the kids much easier than she develops a relationship with the father. That comes slower. Okay? And they do develop a relationship. You also are getting kind of a little bit of backstory of what's transpired on this island, because there are certain things that have transpired on the island. And then you're also getting the story with the kids and what happens with them on the island. Like it is heartbreaking at certain parts of it. Like as it goes through, and the ending killed me. Okay, so I can say I really did enjoy it. I really, really did. And if Goodreads allowed me to give it a 4.5, I would give it a 4.5. But I didn't feel it, in my mind, was 5 stars for me. Not quite. So I went with 4. That was it. And yeah. I would highly recommend it for anybody who likes contemporary fiction mixed in with a very kind of mystery, suspenseful sort of story. I think that you would really like that one. Yeah. Okay. Next one is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is another 4-star. So interesting. This is only a 300-page book. And I can say that the first half of the book might have been running around a 2-star, 3 stars for me. But the last half of the book, loved it. Okay, so that's how come it ends up being 4 stars. It just, the very beginning of the book, so at the very beginning, okay, you have the gallows and the kids from the gallows. So who do we have? We have Dante, Nero, and Sebastian are the sons. They're the oldest, and then there's Ada, who's the youngest. Now, they all decide, they get in a freaking car, and they're going to drive to the Griffins because the Griffins are having a big party for the birthday for one of their daughters. So the Griffins, there's 3 of them. There's the 2 daughters and a son. Okay? And Ada, the daughter, Ada Gallo, she's exploring the house, and they get in there because they managed to get in the party, which that was a bit of a surprise, right? That they actually were allowed in this house because the Griffins and the Gallows don't like each other, like at all. The Griffins are Irish mafia and the Gallows are Italian mafia. Okay? Okay. So at the very beginning, she ends up stuck in this room by accident. She's hiding because Callum Griffin walks in to sit down. He's sit down. He's having a cigar or whatever, and he's relaxing to get away from the party, right? And by accident, she sets the room on fire. It's the library, and it's the one room he loves. Okay. Ada's like an accident waiting to happen, but I loved her character so much. Okay. So that happens. And as a result of this whole thing, it's decided by the fathers of these 2 families that Ada's going to marry Callum. It's an arranged marriage. And they hate each other. But they have hot sex, even though they hate each other. But it's like hate sex. Like at the beginning, they do not fall in love. They just screw, basically. But then it gets much deeper because Callum becomes to quickly realize that Ada's very smart. She's very smart, okay? And Ada, who, while she was not part of her father's business, paid a lot of attention to what was going on in the community, the people, the important people in the community. Like Ada really paid attention. And Callum is trying to get elected to a position. I can't remember exactly what position it was, but it's in Chicago, and it is like a political position in the community, right? So he wants to win that. Ada's helping him because she's smart. And he quickly realizes that, even though his father thinks Ada's nothing but trouble. At the beginning, this is kind of how it is. I think his mom, though, I think Callum's mom kind of gets a feel for that Ada's much more than what she seems. Ada was brought up with all men because her mom's not alive. It's kind of weird. And she has a bit of a difficult time because she's got to try to bring herself into the Griffins' world, and their world is very different because she grew up with all Italian men. How the whole thing starts off at the very beginning is crazy, and then how it ends is crazy, okay? But I can safely say they both end up very happy together, even despite how it started. So, liked it very much. I don't know what the next book is in the series, but I do have the whole series by Sophie Lark. I got it from Book Outlet, so I'll be reading on. Yeah, I did enjoy that one very much. Okay, next one is probably close to one of my favorite reads for the month, okay, is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This I did not expect, okay. I thought I was going to read this, going to be like, my expectation was going to be a 3. 5 stars for this. There was not a single part of this book I did not like, I did not enjoy. I can only say, like, maybe at the very beginning, because they have to go through sort of what happens to Phoebe, our main character, at the very beginning, for you to understand where she's at when she arrives at that hotel. And it's the hotel where she's going to kill herself, apparently. Okay? And it's at that hotel where she meets Lila, the bride, who essentially Lila saves Phoebe. It sort of centers around their relationship, but it has so much more to it than just that. But the book is Phoebe's journey and where she goes through this journey. And let me tell you, when I say there's funny parts in here, oh my God, there were parts that I was laughing out loud, and I just really, really, it's like you could picture what was going. That's how well she wrote it. Like you could completely picture how cuckoo pants Lila was sometimes, okay? And you could picture the situations Phoebe was in, and it was fun and it was sad at certain points, but it was also happy at other points. And the cast of characters, okay, so there was Phoebe and her ex-husband Mark, okay, and he's the one, he cheats on her, that's where it begins, and he cheats with a woman that they work with. And they're all professors at a college, right? So Phoebe decides she's done. I think it's 2 years from the point where all that kind of transpires, sort of like that little bit at the beginning of the book. And at the point where she gets to the hotel, I think it's 2 years. And she's like sick of the whole thing. She's depressed all the time. She's just sick of her life, right? And I don't know that she sees any other way out at this point. And there is something that happens at the house just before she leaves. I'm not going to say what that is because I think that's a pivotal point. Something important happens, and Phoebe makes this decision to go to do the deed at the hotel. Okay, and then she meets Lila. That's the first person she meets. But then she meets everybody else. So she meets the groom. She meets Marla, the groom's sister. She meets Patricia, Lila's mother. She meets the 2 girls, Susan and Nat, who are the other bridesmaids. She meets Juice, who is the daughter of the groom that Lila's marrying, Gary. And Juice is her nickname, but her real name is Mel. I'm assuming Melissa, but yeah. And all these people, even there's 2 key people at the hotel. There's Patricia, who is the hotel manager, and Carlton, who is like the concierge. And even they're kind of like background pivotal characters. Loved it. Loved it. 5 stars. Yeah. Can't even say enough. This 363 pages, and I read it in 2 days. Well, like 2 evenings. My 2 evenings are just like I couldn't put it down. It was just so good. Yeah. Loved it. I would highly recommend it for anybody who likes women's literature, but just loves a really great story about people becoming friends and Phoebe's journey. Yeah, from rock bottom. Yeah. So, and I think Phoebe is 40, in around there. 40, no kids, that kind of thing. Yeah, she's had a rough time. And it was a great book. Okay, so we have 3 more books to do, and this is another one of the favorite ones. So The Wedding People was women's literature. This one is pure fantasy. Silverblood Promise by James Logan. Love this book so much. 5 stars, 6 stars. I guess this is my favorite. This whole story was so good right from beginning to end. I did not dislike any of it. Was not bored. I just found, yeah, I love the whole thing. So what we have is we have Lucan Gardova, and he is our main character through the whole book. Lucan finds out right at the beginning of the book that his father was murdered. Him and his father are estranged. I think it's 7 years, been 7 years since he's seen his father. Lucan, I think, is around about 26, 27 on average. I think that's how old he is in this book, somewhere in around there, late 20s, that book. And his father's steward finds him. Don't know how she found him, but she found him to deliver the bad news, but also to deliver a note that his father had written clearly just before he died. And it has 3 words on it. And the 3 words, first one is his son's name, next one is a place, third one is a person. So it leads Lucan to Sarfona, which is this city, to try and find this person, Zandrusa. And the whole adventure, and it is an adventure, it is like a swashbuckling adventure, sort of, okay? Because there are swords and there is like a bit of magic in the background happening. It's a little bit of like a fantasy element in there. And it has a bit of King Arthur's time to it, but it's told in a sort of a very new sort of feel to it. I think I can't even describe that. It's just fantastic. And one of the first people he meets when he hits Sarfona is Flea, and she is a very young orphan pickpocket. And she tries to pick his pocket. He catches her, and she becomes his ally. And she's a character and a half. Okay, their relationship is hilarious because clearly she's like almost a younger sister. That's how he treats her, and then he ends up allied to these other people that he doesn't trust. It's so good, okay, and the idea is that Zandrusa does exist because he's not sure if she exists, but she's been arrested for a murder. She didn't commit it. She says she didn't. And he's got to try to solve that. So that's what is happening in the background because he needs something from her that was his father's. And it was just so good. Oh my God. It was really, really, really good. It's just such great characters, and it is going to continue on into the next one, which I think is the Blackfire Blade. I think that's the name of it. I have ordered that one. It is coming. It just came out. Hasn't been out that long because I absolutely want to read it because this was just so freaking good. I know that at one point, the Broken Binding had these beautiful editions of this and the Blackfire Blade, which I think is really great. But honestly, I love the floppy paperbacks. So I'm like, no, I'm going to get the one that matches this one. And yeah, I just loved it so much. Okay. Next one is Divergent by Veronica Roth. And I give this 4 stars. I did really quite like it. I did find certain parts of it dragged on a little bit. It just, I was bored in certain parts, which, I think because I have seen the movie Divergent, just the first movie, and even that happened in the movie. Okay. The middle section kind of dragged a bit, and so it did in the book as well. But I liked the story of Triss and 4 and how Triss changed from abnegation to dauntless, and the explanation of the Divergent and a little bit of the back reasons of why she's Divergent him out, but not 100%, but a little bit of an explanation is there. I really liked it. I liked the characters. I thought that how it ended is like really rough because you're talking about teenagers. I mean, at this point, is Triss like 16? I don't know if she's 16 or 18. Either way, very, very young. And it makes it hard to read when you're thinking about these young people and how they're being used. Because essentially that's what's happening in the background with this woman, Janine, and what she's done and how these older people, including Forrest's father, Tobias's father, Marcus, how they use them. And that's not how this separations in the world, and that's not how it was all intended to work. So I did really like it. Now, I do have the other 2 books, so I will continue on with the series, obviously. Can't remember which one of 2 is the next one in the book. Insurgent, is that the next one in the book? But I will continue on with the series because I did quite like it. So the last one we have is an ebook, and it is called Dig by J.H. Markert, and it was an ARC that I had to read, so it is not out yet. I got this from NetGalley. I think this is coming out soon, somewhere at the beginning, first half of 2026. So this, I didn't get it way, way ahead. This is about, it's a horror, and it is about this island that had a tragedy happen. And the story centers around the people that were basically left behind on what happened in the tragedy. Amy Barnes, she was a twin, and her twin was killed during this. It was like a massacre on the island, okay? And the massacre happened by this fellow named Jericho, who, from what I can gather, he was he 10 or 12? He was unusually large for his age. Like, he was a full-grown man at 10 years old or something like that. And he took an axe and he killed a bunch of people. And that was what happened. So you have Amy, who's the sister. Her mom and her parents both died. I mean, her mom, dad, and her twin sister, they all died because of the massacre. Then there's Nathan died, and there was his father Thomas, who survived, and Jericho died in his prison cell. He committed suicide. Okay, so we have that. And then there is the sheriff who he was the sheriff then when it happened. I think it was 10 years previous. I think it was 10 years. And then there is the older fellow, Mr. Passafume, who he was the old guy who made the honey that was sold that supported people in the island. Like, it was a high value honey, right? Okay. So how the book starts is Thomas died, who is Nathan's father, and who was also Jericho's father, who was the one who killed everybody. He dies at the beginning of the book. And he calls Amy. Did he call Amy? No, Amy's the one who finds him. That's how it starts. Now, Nate has to come home for it. So he comes home. And there is weird shit happening on this island. So they're getting these earthquakes are happening constantly. And the sheriff, he has this chain with the other islands' sheriffs, and they're talking about the earthquakes. And their island's the only one experiencing earthquakes. The other islands are not. They become aware of the fact that something's happening with these earthquakes. And then all these people on the island are digging, okay? It's like they become obsessive, and they're digging and they won't stop digging. But it's not happening to everybody. It's only happening to certain people. But they're digging and they're digging and they're digging. And then these violent things start occurring. So it's like almost it's happening again, a little bit relating back to the massacre and all the digging that's happening in the island. And it was crazy. I gave it 4 stars. Now, there were certain points where I felt like it almost didn't jive to get, like certain elements of it didn't come together until really later in the book, like much, much later in the book, almost towards the end of the book. And I thought the ending of the book was a little fast. Okay. So the balance was off a bit in it, but I still loved the story. And I liked the characters that were in the book very much. And it was told from multiple points of view. So Amy was point of view, Nate was point of view, the sheriff was point of view. I think Mr. Passafume was point of view. So they were the important points of view on what was happening and bringing kind of everything together. And I just really enjoyed that. And I mean, honestly, I quite enjoyed the whole book. It'd be curious to read it in print form, because I do find for me sometimes when I'm reading an ARC and I'm reading an ebook that the ebook loses me a little bit, and sometimes I want to read the print book, you know? That happens all the time for fantasies for me. I just find that there's certain things that I feel like I'm losing certain things when I'm reading through it. And maybe it was not as good as I think it could have been. So then I want to reread it when it comes out in print form, in its finished form. I don't know. This was the first book that I've read from this particular author, and I did actually enjoy it. And I know I've seen other books come out by them. I think there was one that was not that long ago that came out from them. So I will follow and I will read another book from them but this was crazy, bizarre, weird, and definitely a horror. Okay, and a bit gruesome. Yeah, great way to end off my reviews, though, don't you think? Yeah. Okay, so that was it. I'm going to close up here because that's it. We're done. And we are on to my December reads, which is going to be a lot of fun because outside of the 5 Hunger Game books, everything else is Christmas. So it's going to be great. Yeah, I love the Christmas reads. A lot of the Christmas read books are shorter, a little on the shorter side. Do have like 1 or 2 romances that are a little bit longer, which I will be reading. So I think that's going to be good too. But yeah, so going to be really, really, really great. I can't wait to finish reading December. And I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have made it all the way to the end, I applaud you because I'm sure this was long. And leave me some emojis, maybe leave me Christmas trees or Merry Christmas emojis or anything signifying Christmas, because Christmas is coming up. And yeah, so would love it. And if you've got any comments on any of these books that you've read, I would love to hear it. Always happy to hear whether you agree with me or not, okay? Absolutely would love to hear what you have to say. And I am going to sign off for now, and hopefully we're going to have some really good videos for you in December and in 2026 for sure. Okay, I'm out. Have a great day.